Hello, good morning, good evening. Um, I have a thought for the day, and this one again comes from Spiritual Emergency. When personal transformation becomes a crisis, and this is by Stanislav Grof and Christina Grof. And I am going to stay on the topic of personal transformation becomes a crisis when ETs are involved. I'm making that up, but that's our theme. So I'm going to reread something that I ended with in the previous thought for the day. And it starts, as Whitley Strieber writes in describing his UFO abduction, quote, Whitley, end quote, ceased to exist. What was left was a body in a state of fear so great that it swept about me like a thick, suffocating curtain, turning paralysis into a condition that seemed close to death. I do not think my ordinary humanity survived the transition. End quote from Whitley. How graphic this description of being forcibly separated from one's deepest sense of oneself by an utterly alien agency and left hanging in the ambiguous margins of being. Neither here nor there. Strieber's experience is common to that of many, but not all UFO abductees. Might we be justified in suggesting that what is at stake in human-alien encounters is a certain concept of humanity? It seems more than likely that our culture-wide ambivalence toward accepting the UFO phenomenon as real reflects a collective sense that the stakes of the game are indeed high. Meeting the gaze of the other, quote unquote, capital O, requires us to face Rainer Maria Rilke's painful recognition. There is no place at all that is not looking at you. You must change your life. As a culture, perhaps as a species, we are fatally drawn to or beckoned by the mysterious unknown. And yet, Strieber's fear is not his alone. Acknowledging the long-term existence of what Strieber calls the visitor phenomenon invites us to accept, in his words, quote, that we may very well be something different from what we believe ourselves to be on this earth for reasons that may not be known to us, the understanding of which will be an immense challenge. For those of us who have not been borrowed and maligned by aliens, the refusal of the call can be far more subtle. Many whose contact with the other is telepathic or characterized by visionary phenomena with mythological motifs, they may find themselves at first resisting their experience by simply tuning it out. Who among us looks forward to giving up our familiar, safe sense of who we are? All of us are haunted by the presence of our shadow, of that within and around us which refuses to be easily colonized by the ego. Yet, once a certain amount of one's life is lived, it becomes harder to ignore the other's constant coaxing for recognition, for a return to a central and active place in our lives. The ancients knew the importance of maintaining an intimate conversation with one's double, also called one's demon, in Latin called one's genius, called guardian angel by Christianity, reflex man by the Scots, the Vardiger by the Norwegians, or the doppelganger by the Germans. The idea was that by taking care to develop one's genius, this spiritual being would provide help throughout the mortal's life and into the next. Humans who did not attend to their personal other became an evil and menacing entity called a larva, given to hovering over terrified sleepers in their beds at night and driving people to madness. The hero then moves beyond refusing to accept the call, because finally it's impossible not to accept it. We choose to work with the aftermath of UFO experiences, or to walk the spiritual path, or to accept that which presents itself as a personal calling, when we realize that accepting the call is less painful than the feared ramifications of leaving the collective, the herd, or whatever one wants to describe as one's former way of being. Paracelsus wrote that each of us has two bodies, one compounded of the elements, the other of the stars. Accepting the call to adventure, whether in the form of owning one's UFO encounter or near-death experience or some other confrontation with non-ordinary reality, is tantamount to deciding to inhabit one's star body. Which brings us to the second and in some ways even more difficult initiatory phase, living in the ambiguous, not quite here, not quite there. It is this transition between states of being that I want to focus on, simply because I believe this is a place of enormous fertility and spacious potential, even though most of us tend to experience openness and receptivity as emptiness and loss. So as you go through your day to day, finish emptying yourself out, finish letting go, and start building a connection to the other you, the other way, the other reality, the other experiences that you have had or that you've heard other people have had. Let yourself open to your potential and make a great day.